Zirith stood at the edge of the burning Earth City. The smoke rose high into the sky, and the ground still shook from the last blast. Her armor shimmered like stars, her crown glowing faintly. Behind her, rows of alien soldiers waited for orders, silent, disciplined, cold. She had conquered worlds bigger than this. She had broken kings, burned moons, and silenced rebellions. But this planet, Earth, felt different. It smelled of stubbornness and strange hope. She didn't like it. "Bring me the last human leader," she ordered. Moments later, her soldiers returned not with a leader, but with a simple man. Dirty clothes, worn boots, messy hair, but his eyes, they were calm. To calm, he looked at Zirith and didn't kneel. The soldiers pushed him forward. This one refused to hide. One said, "We found him waiting outside the ruins. He asked for you." Zirith narrowed her eyes. "Do you know who I am?" The man nodded. "Zirith, the Empress of Flame, the one who crushed the Sunborn and made the Ice Moons bow." She raised her chin, then kneel. But the man only smiled. "No," he said simply. The silence that followed was heavy. Her guards tensed. One moved forward, ready to strike him down. "Stop," Zirith said, lifting a hand. The human's name was Jack. He looked young but tired. Not afraid, not proud, just steady. "I've seen fear," Zirith said, walking closer to him. "I've seen men cry, scream, beg. But you, you stand like you don't care if I kill you." "I don't," Jack replied. "You've already taken everything." Zirith studied him. His hands were dirty but steady. His heartbeat, her sensors showed, was calm. "Why did you ask to see me?" she asked. Jack reached into his pocket slowly. Her guards raised their weapons, but he only pulled out a small silver flask. "Water," he offered. Zirith blinked. "You offer me water? It's Earth's finest. Found it in a ruined church. Might be the last clean thing left." She stared at him, unsure if it was a joke or an insult. Slowly, she reached out and took the flask. Her soldiers were frozen in shock. She took a sip. It was clean, pure, cold. Zirith frowned. "This is not poison." Jack shrugged. "Didn't think you'd fear poison." Something stirred in Zirith's chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't curiosity. It was something strange and forgotten. "I don't understand you," she said. Jack looked at the sky. "Most people don't." Didn't you run?" "I wanted to see your eyes before I died." She tilted her head. "And what do you see?" Jack paused. Then, softly, "A woman who's tired of war, but doesn't know how to stop." Zirith froze. The words hit her harder than a laser blast. She had lived her whole life in battles. From the age of 10, she was trained to conquer, to command, to kill. She had never been called tired, but she was. She had never heard someone speak to her like this, not with fear, not with flattery, but with truth. She looked at Jack again. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't royal. But something about him felt unbreakable, and that shook her. "Leave us," she told her soldiers. But I said leave. The guards slowly backed away, watching with confusion. Zirith stepped close to Jack. "Do you know what I could do to you right now?" Jack nodded. "Yes, but you won't." "Why?" "Because you want something else. You just don't know what yet." Her hand rose as if to strike him, stopped halfway. Jack didn't move. She leaned close. Her lips brushed his ear. "Say one more thing like that," she whispered, "and I will break you." But Jack whispered something back. Something the cameras didn't catch. Something only she heard. Zirith stepped back suddenly, her eyes wide, her face pale. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't speak. She didn't kill him. She just turned. around, and walked away. Jack stood alone in the smoke, watching her go far above them. Her warship hovered, ready to destroy the rest of the city, but the order never came. Asterisk. Zirith sat alone in her private chamber aboard the warship Valkrath. Outside the giant windows, Earth spun slowly in the dark. Fires burned across its surface. Her fleet waited in silence, ready to erase the planet if she gave the command. But she didn't. Her generals were confused. Her soldiers whispered. Number? One dared to question her, but she could feel their doubt. She closed her eyes. Jack's voice still echoed in her mind. You want something else? You just don't know what yet. It was the first time in years someone had spoken to her like that, without fear, without pretending. For the first time in a long time, Zirith couldn't sleep. The chamber was filled with trophies, skulls of fallen enemies, weapons from defeated empires, robes soaked in the blood of royal heirs. But now, all those things felt meaningless. Zirith stood, walked to the mirror, and stared at her reflection. She had silver hair that shimmered like firelight. Her eyes glowed like twin suns. Her skin was marked with the royal sigils of war. She was beautiful, deadly, a queen of destruction, and yet she felt empty. She walked to a small drawer and pulled out an old metal ring. It was small, made of simple iron, with scratches on its surface. She stared at it for a long time. It was from her homeworld before she became empress, before the throne, before blood and fire. When she was just Zirith, daughter of a forgotten farmer, running through golden fields with bare feet and a smile on her face, that little girl no longer existed. She had died the day the empire took her. A soft chime broke the silence. Her AI assistant spoke. Empress, your generals request an update. The Earth cities are waiting. Shall we begin final cleansing? Zirith didn't answer. She walked to the balcony instead. She looked down at the planet. At one specific point. Place she met him, Jack. That foolish human. Why couldn't she forget him? She activated a secret command. I want eyes on him. No drones, no soldiers. Just a quiet scout. I want to know where he goes, who he speaks to, what he eats. Everything. Understood, said the AI. Then she added, and don't let him know he's being watched. Hours later, in the darkness of night, a stealth glider flew over the ruined city. A small camera drone floated through cracked windows and broken alleys. It finally stopped and locked onto the image of Jack. He was sitting by a campfire, alone. Humming to himself, he had built a small shelter out of wood and scraps. Nearby was a half-burned photo of people, maybe his family. There was a folded Earth flag beside him. He wasn't angry. He wasn't sad. He looked peace. Zirith watched. The footage from her throne. Why did that bother her so much? She had taken everything from him, and yet he still had peace. She had everything, and still. She had none. She slammed her fist on the armrest. Why does he matter? She asked herself, but deep inside, she already knew the answer. Jack had something no one in her empire did. Freedom. The next day, Zirith sat in council with her generals. They wore sharp armor, eyes like stone, hands always ready to kill. General Vrax spoke. The humans are broken, my queen, but something is wrong. With you, you hesitate. Zirith's eyes glowed. Watch your words, Vrax. I mean no offense, he replied coldly. But hesitation is weakness. You used to burn 10 worlds before breakfast, and now you waste time watching a single man. Zirith stood slowly. I've conquered galaxies, Vrax. I've crushed kings, gods, and rebels. She walked closer, her voice like thunder wrapped in silk. But not once. Has anyone made me stop and think? Not once has anyone made me feel alive. Vrax's jaw tightened. A man like that is dangerous. Zirith smiled. Yes, that's why I want to understand him. That night, without her guards, without armor, Zirith dressed in plain black clothes and covered her glowing eyes with a special visor. She entered a small stealth pod, flew alone to the surface of Earth. No one knew, not her soldiers, not her AI, not even Jack. She landed near the ruins, walked through broken streets, and found his shelter by the feral IGHT. Jack was there, humming again, writing something in a notebook. Zirith stepped out of the shadows. Jack looked up and stared. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just smiled. Took you long enough, he said. Zirith was frozen. How did you? I figured you'd come, Jack said. You're not as heartless as you pretend to be. She stepped closer. Slowly this time, she didn't speak as a queen. This time, she asked softly, "What are you writing?" He looked up, then passed her the notebook. I'm writing about the woman who forgot how to dream. Zirith's lips parted, but no words came. Out just silence, and in that silence, something began to change. The fire crackled softly as Zirith sat across from Jack, the human who had made her doubt everything she knew. She, the great empress of flame, was now sitting on cold earth soil in plain clothes like a common travel, facing a man who should have feared her, hated her, or begged her, but he did none of those things. Instead, Jack passed her a piece of bread. Zirith looked at it like it was a strange weapon. It's not poisoned, he said with a smile. She took it slowly, bit into it, dry, simple. Earth food, but she didn't complain. Jack leaned back, watching the stars above. I used to stare at those same stars and wonder if someone out there was kinder than we were. Zirith didn't answer right away. She followed his gaze. Stars, she had conquered dozens of them, but never appreciated them. Jack looked at her. You're not what I expected. And what did you expect? She asked. A monster? A machine? Maybe a heartless alien queen with a death beam. She chuckled quietly. It surprised even her. I was all those things, she said, until you. Jack didn't smile this time. He looked at her seriously. Why are you really here, Zirith? She hesitated. I don't know anymore, she whispered. The wind blew gently. Ash floated in the air like snow. Zirith leaned forward, her voice soft. When I was young, I had dreams. I wanted to grow flowers on the roof of my home. I wanted to sing, to fly, not in warships, but with wings. Jack watched her carefully. What happened? She smiled sadly. The Empire killed those dreams and gave me a crown instead. He didn't speak. He just listened. That was the first thing she noticed about him, not his strength, not his looks, but the way he listened. No interruptions, no pride, just silence. That felt like comfort. They talked for hours, about Earth, about the stars, about music, about fear at one point. Zirith looked at her hands, the same hands that had pressed launch codes, signed death orders. Held blades through Heart's End, she asked. Do you think these hands can ever be clean again? Jack didn't answer. Instead, he reached forward and gently placed his hand over hers. His skin was warm. Hers was cold, fire and ice. But somehow, it felt right. She didn't pull away. For the first time in years, Zirith didn't feel like a queen or a weapon. She felt human. The fire burned low. The sky turned darker. Zirith stood up. I should go. They find me here, I know, Jack said, also standing. They were close now. Too close. Zirith looked into his eyes. She had stared down warlords, gods, beasts. From black holes, but Jack's eyes made her nervous. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she whispered. Jack tilted his head. "Because I see the real you." And then, silence again, but not empty silence. A moment full of something heavy. Strange, beautiful. Her lips trembled. His breath caught, and then she kissed him. It wasn't soft, it wasn't sweet. It was fire and storm, stars and sorrow. Her kiss was full of pain, full of fear, full of 1,000 deaths and one tiny hope. Jack didn't pull away. He kissed her back, and in that moment, something ancient awoke. The sigils on Zirith's neck began to glow. Her hands sparked with red energy. Her crown, hidden beneath her cloak, began to hum. Jack stepped back. "What's happening?" Zirith gasped. "No, this can't be." She fell to her knees, grabbing her chest. "Zirith." Jack knelt beside her. Her eyes blazed gold. Her skin shimmered like burning metal. Then, dash, boom. A wave of invisible energy shot up into the sky like a flare, far above Earth. On the Valkrith alarms screamed. "Royal bond detected," shouted the AI. "Repeat, Empress Zirith has triggered a heartlink signal. Tracing source, ... Earth surface." Her generals looked at each other in shock. Heartlink was a sacred, forbidden power, only triggered when the royal blood chose a mate. Back on Earth, Zirith fell into Jack's arms, weak and shaking. "No one was supposed to trigger this," she whispered. "Not with a human." Jack held her tightly. "I don't understand." Zirith looked into his eyes. "You don't have to. Just run." "But please," she said. "They're coming. I broke the code. I broke everything." In the distance, they heard the faint roar of engines in the sky. The Empire was coming to punish her, to erase him, to fix what her kiss had broken. Jack stood, helping her up. "No," he said calmly. "We're not running." She stared at him. "You'll die, maybe," Jack said, pulling her close, "but not before I make them regret touching you." Zirith's lips trembled. She had ruled over millions. But no one had ever said those words to her before. Not like that, not with that fire, not with that love above them. Warships broke through the clouds like monsters from a dark sea. Zirith wiped her tears. Fire rising in her palms. Beside her, Jack picked up a metal rod and smiled like a madman, and together they stood. Ready, *, the sky above Earth turned black as warships covered the stars. Thunder rolled, not from clouds, but from engines preparing to fire. Zirith stood beside Jack, her eyes burning with royal fire. She was no longer hiding. Her body glowed with ancient symbols, marks of a heartlink, a sacred connection, forbidden bond. And now, the Empire wanted blood. "Stay behind me," she told Jack. Jack gripped the metal rod tighter. Not a chance. Zirith's lips twitched. Was that a smile? Even now, on the edge of death, this human made her feel something she never knew. Safe. The first blast hit the ground near them. Dust and stone exploded into the air. Zirith raised a shield of energy around them. Boom, another blast. Then another. "They're trying to scare us," she said. "It's working," Jack replied. "Just a little." Then came the sound of boots, hundreds of soldiers landing all around the ruins. Gray-armored troopers with glowing eyes surrounded. The broken city in the center landed a tall figure in red-armored General Vrax. Zirith narrowed her eyes. "Of course it's him." Jack glanced at her. "Old friend, old killer," she said coldly. Vrax stepped forward. His voice echoed through a voice amplifier. "Zirith, a flame. Empress, no more. You broke the Heartlink law. You bound yourself. To a human, you betrayed the throne." Zirith raised her chin. "I am the throne." Not anymore, Vrock said. The High Council has stripped you of title and command. Surrender or face judgment. Zirith's hands flared with red light. If judgment comes, let it find me fighting. Jack stepped forward. You want her? You'll have to come through me. Vrax looked at him like he was a joke. You're a human, nothing more than dirt. Jack smirked. Then I'm the dirtiest problem you'll ever meet. The soldiers charged. Zirith unleashed a wave of burning energy, sending 10 flying backward. Jack swung his metal rod like a warrior, hitting helmets, dodging blasts, and grabbing weapons from stunned troopers. They fought back to back. Zirith's fire burned red. Jack's strength burned bright. But they were outnumbered, badly. Zeterai took a laser bolt to the side. She screamed, falling to one knee. Zereth, Jack yelled, rushing to her. But another soldier slammed him to the ground. They were both pinned. General Vrax walked toward them slowly, aiming his plasma blade. You should have stayed a queen, he said. Instead, you became his. Zirith's voice was weak but sharp. I became me. The plasma blade rose. Zirith closed her eyes. Then, a loud bang, and Vrax stumbled back, clutching his arm. A group of humans had arrived scrappy, rough, wounded, but brave. Rebels. They had seen the flare in the sky. They had seen hope. One shouted, "Protect the Empress." Zirith's eyes widened. They're helping me. Jack helped her up. You showed them something. They're not fighting for you. They're fighting with you. Vrax growled. Kill them all. But the rebels pushed forward, shouting, shooting, throwing homemade bombs. And then, a massive explosion ripped through. The battlefield, Zereth and Jack were thrown backward. Everything went black. She woke up. Chained, her arms were bound with glowing metal cuffs that suppressed her power. She was inside a dark chamber, cold, silent. Across from her was Jack. His face was bruised, his lip bleeding. But he was awake. Jack, she whispered. He looked at her, smiled gently. Still alive, she looked down. I failed you. I should have protected you. He shook his head. You already did. You gave me something no one else did. What? Choice. The door opened. General Vrax entered. Slower this time. His armor was dented. His left arm burned from the rebel's shot. You should have died with your fire, he said to Zirith. Now you'll die in chains. She lifted her chin. Even bound, she had pride. I don't fear death, she said. But I fear living. Without meaning, Jack added. That's why you'll never win, Vrax. You fight for control. We fight for each other. Vrax punched him hard across the face. Zirith roared, struggling against the chains. But nothing happened. No power, only helplessness. For the first time in her life, she felt trapped. Then Vrax said something that froze her blood. The council has voted. You will be executed by sunfire in the morning. And the human, he smiled cruelly, will be erased. Memory, body, soul. Gone. He left the chamber, the doors sealed shut. Silence returned. Zirith leaned her head against Jack's. I'm sorry, Ka, whispered back. Don't be. You gave me something worth dying for. But deep inside her, something stirred, a warmth. A pulsed the heart link. It wasn't just emotion, it was connection, and connection could be shared. Zereth looked at Jack. There's one way out, but it's dangerous. Tell me. She whispered something in an ancient alien tongue. He nodded slowly. Let's try it. They closed their eyes and reached for each other's heart. Two hearts' power flowed between them. The chains cracked, the air shimmered. The lights in the chamber flickered. A heartbeat echoed through the walls, one pulse shared by two souls. And then, the chains shattered. Zirith stood, her hands glowing. Jack stood, his eyes wide. They weren't just a couple anymore. They were a force. The door exploded. Smoke and fire rushed into the chamber as Xerath and Jack stood side by side, glowing with new power. The chains on the floor were broken pieces now, melted by the energy between them. Xerath's eyes weren't just gold. They were blazing like two suns. Jack's hands were trembling, but not from fear. He could feel her heartbeat inside his own chest. They were connected, not just in mind, but in soul. "What did we just do?" he whispered. Xerath looked at him. "We awakened something ancient. Something forbidden." The heart link was never meant to be completed, but we did. Alarms screamed across the warship, Valkrath. Sirens wailed in every hallway. "Contain the traitors," shouted one officer. But it was too late. Xerath walked through the corridors, and every locked door flew open. Jack followed closely, grabbing weapons, tossing gear to freed prisoners, humans and aliens both. The Empire had captured many over the years, and now Xerath was setting them all free. The rebellion began with whispers. Then it grew into fire. From cell block to hangar bay, the Empire's control was breaking, and all of it started with a kiss. In one hallway, they ran into a group of young alien fighters, her former royal guards. They stood, confused, staring at her. One of them whispered, "Empress." Xerath walked forward, armor cracked, clothes torn, but fire in her voice. "I was your empress, but now I am your sister. Will you follow me? Not as ruler, but as one of you." The guards looked at each other. Then one knelt, and the others followed, not because they feared her, but because they believed in her. The ship shook. "Vrax is trying to destroy the engines," said Jack. "He wants to crash us into Earth," Xerath growled. "If he can't have the throne, he'll take the planet with him." "Then we stop him," Jack said. They ran at the engine core. Vrax stood waiting, blood on his face, his blade humming with red light. "So you've come," he spat. "I didn't come to fight," Xerath said. "I came to end this." Vrax raised his weapon. "Then die trying." Xerath stepped forward, but Jack grabbed her hand. "Let me." Oh, she stared at him. "Jack, he's not your fight anymore. He's ours." And then Jack charged. The fight was brutal. Vrax was stronger, trained, but Jack had something Vrax did in single quotes. Edart's purpose. Every punch he threw wasn't just for Earth. It was for the orphans Vrax's army created, for the prisoners they left behind, for the future Xerath had shown him. Vrax laughed. "You're just a man." Jack punched again. "I'm her man," and that gave him strength. Xerath joined in, her power rising again. Not just fire, but light. Sound pulsed at the engine room, glowed together. They knocked Vrax down. He fell, coughing, his blade broken. He looked up at her with hate. "You betrayed everything." Xerath shook her head. "No, I rebuilt everything." Then she turned to the engine and placed her hand on it, with Jack beside her. She whispered something in her language. The engines cooled. The ship stopped falling. Earth was safe. Hours passed, the battle ended. Across the galaxy, rebels rose. News spread fast. The Empress had chosen love over war. A human had stood against the flame and survived. They sat in silence on the ship's viewing deck. Xerath was wrapped in a light robe now, her crown beside her, but not on her head. Jack held her hand. "My people won't accept this easily," she said. "I know," Jack replied. "There will be more fighting. Then we'll fight together." She looked at him. "You never asked for any of this." "I didn't need to," he said. "You're worth it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave me something no one else ever did." "What?" "Peace," he smiled. You gave me something too. What's that? He touched her heart gently, a reason to believe in stars again. Suddenly, a small alien girl peeked around the corner of the room. Her eyes wide, her skin pale blue. Her clothes torn. She had been a prisoner. Zirith called softly, "Come here, little one." The girl stepped forward, scared. Zirith opened her arms. The child ran to her and hugged her tightly. Jack watched, emotion rising in his chest. Zirith held the girl close, tears in her eyes. That moment said more than 1,000 speeches. The queen, who once burned cities, now comforted a child. In the reflection of the window, Jack saw them not as human and alien, but as hope. And he knew then this wasn't just their fight. Anymore, it was the beginning of something greater. Asterisk, the stars outside the ship were quiet. But inside the Valkrath, change was happening fast. Zirith had called for peace. Jack had given hope. And now, beings from different worlds were slowly coming together, not through fear, but through choice. But deep inside the warship, something old had started to awaken, something ancient, and it was watching. Jack Zirith stood on the command bridge, no longer wearing her crown. She faced a group of freed aliens, once enemies, now followers. "We will not rule with fire anymore," she said. "We will lead with truth." Some looked unsure, but most nodded. Then Jack walked in. Everyone turned. He didn't wear armor. He didn't give orders. But the way people looked at him, it was different now. Like they felt something in him. Like he wasn't just human anymore. Zirith walked to him and took his hand. "We have visitors," she whispered. "Who?" "A group of elders from the outer moons. They say they've waited centuries for a sign." "What sign?" Zirith looked into his eyes. "You." They met the elders in the great hall. They were tall, silent beings with long robes and glowing blue eyes. One stepped forward and pointed at Jack. "It is true," the elder said. "The heart link was awakened by a human." Jack blinked. "Yeah, I guess we did that." The elder turned to Zirith. "Did he share his blood with yours?" Zirith nodded. Jack frowned. "Wait, when did I do that?" The elder raised a hand and Jack's chest glowed. A mark had appeared there, a soft symbol, shaped like a star within a flame. Zirith gasped. "I've only read about this," she whispered. "It's the mark of origin." The elders dropped to one knee. All this time, one whispered, "We thought the Starborn would come from the royal bloodline, but he came from Earth." Jack looked at Zirith. "What does this mean?" She was trembling. "You're not just my bonded mate. You're something more. The mark means you are part of the first line, the ones who began the stars." Jack laughed nervously. "I was just a mechanic before all this." "Maybe," she said. "But your blood holds something powerful." Suddenly, the ship rocked. Alarms blared. Zirith touched her earpiece. "What's happening?" "New fleet, approaching," a voice replied. "Unknown origin." No response to signals. She turned to Jack. "It's not my empire. This is something else." The elders stepped forward. "It is the shadows. They were born when the first light was broken. They hunt the mark of origin." Jack's heart dropped. "So they're coming for me." Zirith took his hand. "Then let them come." The Valkrath moved into defense mode. Fighters launched. Shields rose. But the enemy ships weren't normal. They were silent, black as the void, moving like shadows with minds. When they struck, it wasn't with fire, but with silence. Systems shut down. Lights flickered. The ship began to lose power. Zirith and Jack ran to the energy core. "We have to restart the flow," she said. "Without it, we're blind." Jack placed his hand on the console. Nothing happened. Zierth tried next. Still nothing. Then they touched it together. The moment they did, the ship breathed, lights returned, engines roared. The shadow fleet paused like something had pushed them back. They fear you, Ziereth said. Jack's voice was soft. Why me? Because you carry light they can't touch. He looked down at his hands. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to love a human, she said. But I did. And now we stand in the middle of a storm. He smiled. Then we hold the umbrella together. The shadows began to press harder. Ziereth turned to the fighters. Do not fight for me. Fight for what comes next. Aliens and humans fought side by side. Some died, many lived. But all of them had something the shadows did single quotes T:"hope. Later. In the silence of the healing chambers, Jack lay on a medical bed. He had been hit protecting one of the children. Ziereth sat beside him, holding his hand. You're insane, she whispered. He smiled weakly. Only when you're around. She leaned in and kissed his forehead. You're not just my heart anymore. You're my light. Outside, the shadow ships retreated. The mark on Jack's chest pulsed softly. Peace had not come fully, but it had begun with fire, with love, with one human, and one alien queen. The warship Vokrath drifted quietly above Earth below. Cities were rebuilding. Above, stars shimmered in silence. Inside the great hull of the ship, hundreds of beings, humans, aliens, former enemies, stood together. They weren't soldiers now. They were witnesses. At the center of them all stood Zereth, once feared as Zereth the Flame. She now wore no crown, no weapon, no armor, only a simple white robe. Her golden eyes were soft, her hands open, and beside her stood Jack, the human who once offered her water and now held her hand as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. A voice echoed in the hall. It came from the High Council, who had finally agreed to speak through hologram. Ziereth of Flame, the voice said coldly. You stand accused of betrayal, of linking with a lesser species, of bringing chaos to the throne. Ziereth didn't flinch. Jack didn't let go of her hand. She stepped forward. I don't stand to defend myself, she said. I kneel to defend peace. And to everyone's shock, she knelt slowly with purpose, not as a prisoner, not in shame, but with strength. Gasps filled the room. The woman who once made galaxies tremble now bent her knee humbly before all life. I kneel, she said, not in defeat. Que peux-tu show? You that power without love is hollow. Jack knelt beside her. The moment he did, a golden wave of light pulsed from the mark of origin on his chest. It spread across the floor, then up into the sky. The shadow ships, still watching from the edges of space, recoiled from the light. One by one, they vanished, gone without a word. The council was silent. Then, one of the alien elders stepped forward. He placed his staff on the ground and slowly knelt as well. Then another and another, until all in the room, human and alien alike, lowered themselves in quiet respect, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Later that night, Ziereth and Jack stood on the deck, watching Earth from above. You knelt, Jack said softly. She smiled. I did. Why? She looked at him with warmth in her eyes. Because I wanted to show them what no war ever could, that even a conqueror can learn to love. He leaned close. What happens now? She took a deep breath. We rebuild, not just cities, but trust, bridges between worlds, between hearts. He nodded. Sounds like a lot of work. She grinned. Good thing I have a human to help me. Suddenly, a group of children ran onto the Decalion and human alike. They were playing, laughing. Dancing in the soft gravity of the ship, one small boy ran up to Zereth and tugged at her robe. "Are you really a queen?" he asked. She bent down and smiled. "Not anymore," she said. "Now, I'm just someone who listens." The child looked at Jack. "Is he your prince?" Jack laughed. "Something like that." The kids ran off giggling. Zereth looked at Jack again. "Do you regret it?" He shook his head. "Not even a second." Later, in a quiet ceremony, Zereth placed the royal crown knot on her head. But on a pedestal surrounded by flowers, it would no longer be a symbol of fear, but of change. A reminder that love could tame fire, and one kiss could rewrite the stars before. The story ends. There was one last moment. Zereth turned to Jack and took a small, glowing ring from her side pouch. It shimmered in red and gold fire and light. "This is not from any human tradition," she said. "But in my world, when someone shares a bond that cannot be broken, we offer this." She held it out to him. Jack smiled and took it gently. Then he pulled out something from his own jackatan old, bent silver ring. "I guess we both came prepared," he said, and in front of everyone in the same deck where warships once launched two souls from two worlds stood together. And said yes. No throne, no army, no chains. Only hands held tight, eyes filled with future, and stars that now watched. With quiet pride,